Good evening and welcome to another edition of Capital Market Live on Channels Television, where the market speaks and we analyze. I'm Ladi Williams, and this is the first one for November. Hope October was profitable for you. But let's kick off with what played out with foreign markets that we tracked. Now we see European markets closed lower on Friday as investors reacted to an expected decline in Eurozone inflation. A swath of earnings this week is earnings season, so as expected. The pan-European stocks 600 finished Friday's session down about 0.5%, with major bourses and almost all sectors retreating. UK's FTSE 100 index slipped 0.1%, Germany's DAX fell 0.8%, while the France's CAC index ended 0.4% lower. Italy's FTSE, and Spain's IBEX 35 also edged down about 0.1%. And in Asia, Japan's stocks led gains in Asia on Friday as investors welcome a truce between Washington and Beijing following a meeting between President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. They reached a trade deal of sorts during a high-stakes meeting in South Korea on Thursday, de-escalating a dispute over rare earth metals and elements that had threatened to push the world's two largest economies into a full-blown trade war. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose over 2% to hit a fresh record at 52,411 points, while the Topix index added 0.94% at 3,331 points, also scaling a new peak. And over to the U.S., the Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500 rose on Friday, boosted by shares of tech giant Amazon. On the heels of its strong quarterly results, the tech-heavy Nasdaq advanced 0.61% to finish the session at 23,724 points, while the broad market index gained 0.26% and to reach 6,840 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed 40.75 points higher, or about 0.09%, to 47,562 points. Amazon shares rallied 9.6% after the e-commerce giant said its cloud computing units revenue increased 20% in the third quarter, exceeding Wall Street's estimates. The company's CEO, Andy Jassy, said that AWS is growing at a pace we haven't seen since 2022, and that AI and the core infrastructure are experiencing strong demand. And back here, the Nigerian Exchange Limited hosted key players from the fashion industry to commemorate the 2025 edition of Lagos Fashion Week, with a special closing gong ceremony at its headquarters in Lagos. Lagos State Governor Sir Babajide Sanwo-Olu commended the fashion industry's role in driving innovation, youth empowerment, and economic growth in the state. He also emphasized that fashion continues to generate employment and foster entrepreneurship among young Lagosians.
Everybody now wears, what we produce, and we produce what we wear. The batiks and the adire now, it's now a common trend. Everybody does on it. So we're actually going back, and once we're able to create that, then the investment will come. The companies will come because there's a market for it. So it's backward integration, and it's all of us, and that needs to play, and we're playing it.
Yeah, that's the governor of Lagos State right there, and definitely fashion moving things around here. And yeah, let's just move to buy Nigeria, at this point. All right, let's head on to our first conversation today. It's been raining earnings, the last week of October. We've had from consumer goods, oil and gas companies, financial services. Now it's time to dig deep into some of the earnings reported by listed companies in Nigeria's stock market. Joining us to unpack this, we have Mr. Ambrose Amodian, is Chief Research Officer, Invest Data Consulting, and he's joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you on the show, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so October, that's behind us now, and we're looking into November. Yeah. But let's touch a bit on what played out in October. I did check, and I see that the all-share index was up 8%
for the month of October.
Yeah. So I guess we can call it October.
Yeah, so the name goes October.
October, yeah.
Actually, look at the last 7 months. It has been a consistent up market for Nigeria Stock Exchange. For me, it's a good thing for investor, and that means that investor in Nigeria has really smiled to the bank. And one thing again is that in any market, after seeing a long run, about to see what a slowdown. That is why in the last week of October, that means you saw a mixed market. Profit taking, even at the tick, of any season, you are seeing that price, are adjusting down. That means that the investors are trying to reposition their portfolio after they factor in these earnings that hit the market as we speak. For me, any investor that want to panic at this time means that that is either a baby investor, because it's expected that any market that rally to all this level has to slow down, and that's the beauty of any equity market. It goes ups and down. I know as it goes up and down, people take profit, it comes down, people also enter. That is the beauty of any market anywhere in the world. For me, our market has been a very strong market in the whole world, in Africa, and I will give it to our regulators, the managers of Nigerian companies who have seen strong earnings that have supported this price, and now we're looking forward to see end of the year by February and March. Also responding to the bank with what?
Right, and definitely we're going to look into most of the major earnings we've seen so far. But what are we expecting for November?
For me, these 3 months from November to January in Nigeria is a very busy month, where you expect to see activities. From this November, we expect that the institutional investors, especially the local one and international one, to start analyze our earnings, do their due diligence on it, and now come back to the market to position their portfolio, because they provide the liquidity that push prices. Now they are seeing a slowdown. Recently might be a bit shaking, but those investors, they've seen the strength of this number. They go back to their drawing table and they don't just discuss this number, crash it, come out with another fund to enter, because we are seeing a movement in some sectors that is going to continue. For that, they know how to position their portfolio in that direction. And also because I said for this November till January, in December, the seasonality will always play out. I'm going to let you play out. This first month of October, I just landed now, December, is the last month of the year, or the last quarter of the year. And this year, you see a lot of activities that are going to impact more on earnings again. We have seen earnings that are good as a third quarter. That means companies are also looking at, to reach a better number, and investors are looking at which industry will continue to benefit from this activity we are seeing in the end of the year. Don't forget that in this same nation, by December last year, some of good items are very high. And consumption slowed down because of where these items are high. They can't get by. But now that we're seeing a bit slowdown, that those items that were high are now low a little. Consumption will also increase. That means those goods will leave manufacturer shelf, and that also kind of increase their turnover, and that also at the end of the day impact their number. And we the investors also take advantage of that earnings to position also for the next year. Anything that will come.
And talking about positioning, at this point, I have a couple of earnings, that we did see earlier this week, and we're going to let's look at Zenith now. Let's look at financial services. So gross earnings for Q3 2025, it's about 3.4 trillion naira. Compared to the third quarter of 2024, we see that's 17.24%. Uptick there. Profit before tax, that's at 917.4 billion, lower than 1 trillion in the third quarter, down 8.52%. Bottom line, we see 764.2 billion. Earnings per share, that's 18.60 kobo there, down 29.38%. So looking at this, we see some strength, in there. But what hits you the most?
Actually, before we look at this Zenith Bank number, let me just say that you can't put the banking sector aside in any economy. They are the key role that involved in any economy. And our regulators have positioned our banks to drive the 1 trillion economy. Bank like Zenith Bank, as a consistent bank that always release positive earnings to the market, has put that confidence in the mind of our investors. I believe that this consistency, despite this slight kind of a pullback we just see in their numbers, because of what they just existed from the forbearance table of CBN. That means that these banks are really now free to reward shareholders handsomely. For me, seeing this third quarter number have given investors an insight what they should expect. Also, in investor data, when we look at this number, not only just the number, we do have models to analyze the companies. When we put Zenith Bank into the model we use in our company, at the end of the day, we have 2 models that we use. One puts Zenith Bank as 115 as fair value for Zenith Bank. The second one gives us 138. That means Zenith Bank is broadly undervalued. Looking at these numbers alone, but if you look at the consensus of the bank for almost 25 years, that every quarter, every year, they grow their earnings, they give value to invest. For me, any investor that's thinking consistent dividend, value is a place to be. Or if you look at others in that industry, look at the life of GT Bank, the result that came from GT Bank.
I was going to ask you, how do they compare, to profitability with other fugas?
For me, it's outstanding. And also, it remained the most consistent bank. And also, not only that, the most profitable bank also in Nigeria. They say that this also among the banks that rank in the banks of the world. Where you take the bank, banks in the world, you see Zenith Bank there as one of the strongest banks in Nigeria. For me, it's a bank that investors are looking for value, like I said earlier. You can at this point and take position. Consider that they are giving you an dividend of 1.25 kobo for just half a year. Now, as a point that despite they've increased their share in issue as a result of their primary market activities from almost around 38 to almost 41 now, still you are seeing that the earnings as strong as 18 naira 60 kobo as a third quarter. You can easily forecast 2 naira, 25 naira here, or let's say 22 naira from this number, and that means at the end of the day, if they are working with 6 naira dividend, it's not plus the one they have done, or 5 naira plus. That means at the end of the day, you are getting profit. That means for those that are really smart investors, this is time to looking at the banking stocks that are pulled back. Not only Zenith Bank are pulled back, we have seen the life of GT pulling back, life of Access Bank pulling back, the life of UBU, but we are seeing also another new entrance in the banking sector. The life of Wima Bank, the life of Unity, they are coming out again to this bank. That means investors look at, I'm not going to stay with the fugas, I'm going to find the world is a contier banks. It's not a choice now, but I believe that if you are looking for value, you stay with Zenith Bank and other festival. But for that of Wima Bank, it's a place also to look at because I see the bank evolving, and that's also incredible. Remember the way Fidelity Bank moved from as low as 8 naira to almost 25, moving ahead of Access Bank. We're also seeing that repeating itself in Wima Bank. That means investors in Nigeria is not just looking at the fugas alone, it's also look outside the fuga, but I see value in Zenith Bank. That's why you can see the number as I speak for itself. You can see the top line was up by 17.24%. Also seeing a marginal decline in the bottom line. That speaks for itself.
Right. And talking about profitability and most of the other banks at this point, we know the banks have been heading to the markets, raising capital with the recapitalization. How would you describe the recap exercise by Zenith?
No, if you remember when they came to the market for the rights issue, not only Zenith Bank, we've seen the life of GT Bank, Access Bank, that of UBA, but the beauty is that this bank has even over subscription. As we speak today, they are more than the requirement of 500 billion of CBI. That means that this bank have gone ahead of the capitalization. That means anytime, any day, they can fly. They can move to either an African-speaking country, they can move to Latin America. That means that they have that capacity as international bank to expand.
Right, and also they're also expanding aggressively. I see, most of the banks in Nigeria, we see them, going into other regions, trying to, do the business that they do right there. So definitely, I'm wondering in my mind, expansion needs money, and seeing some of these companies, still pushing, for expansion at this time, is there a risk that this could affect, profitability? How are you seeing that?
At the initial time, it might slow down your profitability, but once you stabilize in those countries you are expanding to, it's a plus. Especially that you are going to earn dollars and bring to Nigeria. I'm good at our exchange rate is stabilizing. For me, I think Nigeria government or economic managers, I would say thumb up to them. The way we are seeing FS stabilizing or even coming down, if it's sustained, I tell you that Nigeria will be, another focus for the world, especially we are out of the green list. And know that our financial banks, our banks are already ranking amongst the top banks in the world, even though they are not the first 10, but seeing them there.
So exit from grey list is bullish for Nigerian banks?
Yeah. Because that means now funds can come into our economy. It can't go through the Odesha market. It has to come through the banks. That means another flow for the banks. In the process, the banks want to earn one income, whether through charges and all. But I believe that since we are seeing Nigeria being a market that is transparent now, with this coming out of the grey bill, for me, I believe that it's going to help the banks also to stabilize, also attract more investors. And these investors, if they are coming down for direct investment or portfolio investment, it has to pass through the banks. For me, it's a good news for our banks.
Right, but it didn't seem to affect them much when we were in the grey list, did it? Yeah. That's the banks.
Actually, when we were in the grey list, not only the banks, it slowed down a lot of activities. Foreign investors will also be very careful. But now that they were out of grey list, that means it's a new market for foreign investors. And don't forget that when we are bringing big dollars to Nigeria, the banks are going to earn a lot of, even though it's COT alone. In Nigeria today, the common charges, we're hearing what the banks are earning. If such dollars are coming in bulk, that will support the banks also. But I believe that our economy is setting up, and the banks are setting up on big money to drive the economy, and that's the beauty. The banks will do their real core business of lending, but I believe that also banks are very, very smart. They can say, okay, if the economy is good, most of them are having a hold code today. They might have to say, let's go. Don't forget that during the time we have a universal insurance, the banks are everywhere, that they won't running the games. Now, with the idea of hold code, I see banks are doing the same thing. And that means for this 500 billion, it's going to support the economy, it's going to support the banks.
Right. And, definitely investors are looking, watching out for most of these earnings and seeing how, these banks navigate, what's ahead of them. But we'll continue the conversation in a bit. There's still more earnings out there. Still watching Capital Market live on Channels Television. We'll tell you what's bullish and bearish about most of these earnings. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back to watching Capital Market live on Channels Television. And we're here dissecting results from most of the listed companies right here. And I still have with me Mr. Ambrose here, helping me look through what my eyes cannot see in most of these results. Yeah, the compass. And, we're still looking at Zenith, at this point. But let's look at areas of caution. Because we keep hearing these results, they look good. And to some investors that don't know how to read between the lines, you just feel like everything about the result is bullish. But let's look at some areas of caution for Zenith Bank Q3 earnings there. We see profit before tax. That fell compared to the prior year. And I'm sure some investors might see this and, might get worried. Is this telling us there's a deeper issue there?
No, if you look at the whole industry numbers, it's not only Zenith Bank we are seeing a kind of a drop in the profit after tax or before tax. It's peculiar to them because, one, the FX gain that boosted all the bank's number in 2024 are not there because of stability we are seeing now. That's why I are seeing this kind of pullback a little bit. I would say that on the strength of the number, you are seeing about almost 911.4 billion. That is not just biscuit. That tells that this is money. I believe that at the end of the day, already we have seen as a third quarter, what matters to every investor is your profit after tax. That is where what can come to you and I as an investor. We have seen the top line, which is very, very important. The top line is still expanding. That means the bank is still entering new markets. Either the technology is bringing new income for that. That's why we are seeing top line in green, while the bottom line is like that. Means it's just like constraining what is happening in the economy. But especially, I say one thing that they've exited from the forbearance list of CBN. That means they have taken care of all the bad loans, all those that are there, everything, they made provision so that going to the future, those provisions they made will also turn profit at the end of the day because they have made provision for that if in case it goes sour. But if those loans come back, no real, they want to put it as for investors also to enjoy. For me, seeing this slowdown does not send any signal of caution, but for those investors looking at the number that support your work, the dividend payout. That's why the EPS is very, very key. And they will pay attention on the bottom line, which is the profit after tax. And that's it that about 764.2 billion against 827. This is a marginal slide down. We're just imagine and tell you that the earning per share that dropped from 26 is a rate of what increase in numbers of shares in issue. Now, compared when you were 24, the number of shares show around 36 billion. But now, because of the primary activity, it has gone to 41.something billion. That has neutralized this earning per share from 6 to 18. I mean, this is not a problem because you know that as you are getting like a person that has 4 children and 12 children cannot eat the same chicken. If you have 1 chicken that you have 4, you enjoy. But when you are 12 enjoy, that's why increase in the number of shares are finally dilute the earnings from 26 naira 34 kobo to 18. But on that, I said earlier that if we put that to at the end of the year, they're having 25 naira earning per share 24, they can afford to give investors 6 naira or 5 naira for what they pay. For me, that's the place to be because I think that in the future, already they've surpassed what they did. No, apart from the earnings that the number of shares that increased, I think that at the end of the day, investors also smart to the bank because it's the bank that has consistently paid dividend on quarterly, on their half year and their full year for the past 25 years. For that, we'll give it to Zenith Bank.
All right.
Not only Zenith Bank, we can also look at other banks in that industry.
All right, let's look at GTCO. Let's see what played out with GTCO now. Definitely, they also had a good one. Their gross earnings about 1.21 trillion. That's up about 27%. That's the gross earnings. Yeah. Profit before tax, we've seen a drop there, 26%. Bottom line, 35.5% down. So this is another fuga right there. One of the big boys, the tier 1 bank.
Yeah, but one thing that for the tier 1 banks, I see that there's somebody leading them, which is Zenith Bank leading them. But all of them are doing well. The life of Access Bank, the life of GTB, the life of Stanbic BTC, they're all doing well. But an industry, there must be a leader. And that is what Zenith Bank is doing, leading that sector. And that is why for you as an investor, it is good for you to invest where you see value A leader in any sector shows that there's something going for them. In terms of dividend, in terms of price, they might be below others in the industry, but in terms of payout, they are high. And for me, I believe that if you only want one value for this the year 2025 ending by December 31st, you start buying into value at this price of within 62, 64, start accumulating the stock before you move towards to 17 naira. If you are buying at this price, when results come, they are paying you 5 naira. You already your yield is almost above 10% because you have already collected your 1.125 kobo and they pay 5 naira or 6 naira. I can see for me, investor is again every investor is again the future. Now that we're seeing the third quarter, I make focus what to come at the end. We're not looking at the past again. We're looking at what to come. That's why every investor will pay what will drive this bigger earnings that will support their payout going towards 2026.
Right. All right. Let's look at outside the Fugas now. Let's see what's happening with Wema Bank. I believe they also, put out their results and, looking at their top line and bottom line. That's for Wema Bank. You can put that up. Definitely, we know investors, some like to look outside.
The big boys.
The big boys, because somehow you can get more multipliers. So what do you see for Wema?
No, for Wema, for me, the way they evolved from, I said earlier that, what we saw in Fidelity is what we are seeing in Wema Bank. I mean, the bank is really expanding. And also, there's a product in that Wema Bank that really support them, what we call the alerts. The alerts have helped Wema Bank to stabilize in their earnings. Go and check what alert is rating in for Wema Bank. It says that bank has provision for that. Not only that, they've successfully raised their bond, they've met CBN capitalization. What means that for them to fly?
Right, and fly. We'll definitely look out for that, flight, going forward. But what is this telling us generally? Looking at the results so far about the strength of Nigeria's banking industry.
I think if you look at let me put it out. Nigeria Bank before now is about 170 trillion worth of the whole bank. Now with all involved, we see that new capitalization has also pushed them bigger. But we're talking about 180 trillion worth of our banks, and that is a big money. And I believe that this is also going to attract more investment in the sector because it's the sector that drives economy. In any economy, bank is the engine room, and that is why CBN is not sleeping when they say the banks is capitalized. Because if you are forecast to have about a $1 trillion economy, you need a solid, a strong financial sector or banks or institution to drive that goal. And that's why they're certain about to do their role, and with this, the banks going to come to earn money. Let me tell you, for example, even though when banks continue, CBN continue to cut rate. Yes, one, non-performing loan will reduce. At the same time, people that will approach the banks for loan will increase. You see what they are not making when the rate was high. You start making when it's low because more people will approach them. That means that core business of lending will also give money to the banks. That means the bank will still be stable. It does for me, it's just for them to stabilize. And also in Nigeria, don't forget that people assume that the banks are over-regulated. But they are not regulated, but the CBN is making them to sit so that they're able to drive and do their work, the function of what, driving the economy. For me, our banks are solid to drive our economy. It is now done on investors to know where should I put my funds to make more money. That's why comparative analysis is very, very important. Anywhere, either in different sectors, who are the leaders, who are the top, which one has value, which one can see that consistent dividend will come. And know that the way we see dividend, last year, half year, change automatically. We're looking to see how the full year will look like. But with this third quarter number, you can easily project what will happen because if you have exited from the forbearance list of CBN, that means that you have capacity to reward your shareholder. Also, if you look at also what we call the net assets of all the banks, as I speak today, Zenith Bank is leading Nigeria. About 4.7 trillion is what they have as their net asset. For me, it's a big volume for Zenith Bank.
So let's play a little game, at this point. Please put up the Zenith Bank results for me. We're going to look at, the snapshots, what Zenith Bank put out for Q3. So looking at this result right now, is this a buy, hold, or sell for Zenith Bank?
It's a buy, and I tell you why it's a buy. I said in our two models of analysis that we use, that one giving us a 135, and one giving us 115. That means, look at the price of Zenith Bank, it's around 65, 64, 63. That means the stock is grossly undervalued. That means, you can key in there. For me, I'm bullish for Zenith Bank with this number.
Right, and put up GTCO, buy, hold, or sell for GTCO, looking at GTCO's result.
On this number, for now, I would say you should hold GTB. Why should you hold? Because also they have a issue of paying good dividend. You can hold. You can hold GTB now in your portfolio. You don't need to panic out. Hold GTB.
Right. And I'm sure there's some undervalued stocks out there that some investors will be wondering, is this a time to either buy more, sell, or hold? Looking at some of the results, there's so many earnings that we're still going to pass through, most of them, at this point. But I know you've gone through most of them. What is your all-in, at this moment?
No, for me, if you look at the way, let's start from the airline service sector. from there, I can see that the number that came from that sector was impressive. I've seen the number that came from NACO, the one that came from SACO. The only one that a bit missed is the one that came from Cavaton. But for NACO, for me, I say buy because the numbers speak for itself. Then we move also to the ITC. Let's remove the telecom companies for now. Look at the small tech companies that come in. The life of eTransact, the life of CWG, the life of Charm. These are one comment up. I clear that CWG number, that one is also a buy because the numbers speak for itself. Then you now turn to the big boys, which are the telecoms. The number that came from from MTN speak volume. MTN have kind of come back powerfully. They've come back. They've built up their net their what's called shareholders fund that was negative before is back profit now, and also the margin of top line and bottom line, the company is back fully because the government adjusting their tariffs, also playing out there. Also today we're having a digital economy. You can't do the economy without the internet, without for me. That sector, especially that MTN, is a place to invest. I'm bullish for that one too. You can take position on that one. Then you now move to the insurance sector. Yes, we have seen the life of NEM. Leading them, because NEM is also a leader in that sector. Because their earnings also, I speak for them that their earnings are strong. I'm also bullish for NEM. Then I saw a missed number for Mansard. Mansard was in a good top level, but
no, we can't go through all of them. There's so many of them. But thank you so much, for helping us, pack the ones that we, looked at today. We'll still be looking at more earnings, as they come out. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambrose Omodio, Chief Research Officer, Invest Data Consulting.
That's for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, that's for
all right, so hopefully we've been able to help you make a choice when it comes to this trading month of November. Hopefully you're able to make some gains and maybe a November to remember. Thank you so much for watching Capital Market. I'm Ladi Williams. I'm in the team right here at Channels HQ. Bye for now.